Annals of the Space Wolves. The Space Wolves can trace their glorious history back to the foundation of the Imperium and the terrible wars that were fought to protect it. Over the millennia, the Space Wolves have stayed true to their vow to fight in the name of their Primarch and the Allfather, and have defeated the enemies of mankind on countless battlefields in honor of that oath. Millennium 30 to 32. Saga of the Fallen. The Wolf and the Lion. The Space Wolves and the Dark Angels meet for the first time during the Great Crusade. And upon the world of Duran, the two chapters come to blows. Leman Russ and the Dark Angels' Primarch, Lion L. Johnson, engage in a mighty duel. The first in a long and bitter feud between the two warlords. The burning of Prospero. The Emperor orders the apprehension of Magnus the Red and the destruction of his Thousand Sons Legion as punishment for ignoring the edicts of the Council of Nicaea. Leman Russ leads his legion in a devastating attack on Prospero. The Thousand Sons are all but annihilated in the bloody fighting, and Russ breaks his brother's back in a titanic struggle. Though Magnus uses dark sorcery to escape death, the entire Space Wolves 13th Company is lost after they pursue the remnants of the fleeing Thousand Sons into the Eye of Terror. The Second Founding. The Space Marine legions are broken down into chapters in accordance with the Codex Astartes. Largely ignoring the treatise, Russ retains much of the legion's strength, dividing it only once to create the ill-fated Wolf Brothers chapter. The Primarch departs. During the 197th Feast of the Emperor's Ascension on Fenris, Leman Russ gathers his closest retainers and departs for the Eye of Terror without explanation. The First Great Hunt. After 7 years of waiting for their Primarch to return, the Space Wolves elect Bjorn the Fell-Handed, the only member of Russ's company to be left behind, as their leader. In his first act as Great Wolf, Bjorn announces the Great Hunt. The entire Space Wolves chapter sets forth in an attempt to discern the whereabouts of their missing Primarch, though they are ultimately unsuccessful. Incarceration. Bjorn the Fellhand's heroic career is tragically cut short during the Proxima Rebellion. Bjorn leads a successful raid to free those of his battle brothers trapped in the Dreadsun fortress, but his body sustains such terrible injuries that to preserve his life, what is left of his shattered body is interred in a dreadnought. Acutely aware that, as a dreadnought, he can no longer fulfill his duties as master of the chapter, Bjorn abdicates his position as Great Wolf. Millennium 32 to 36. Saga of Conquests. The Battle of the Fang. Magnus the Red appears to Great Wolf Harek Ironhelm in a series of visions. Haunted by his dreams, Ironhelm becomes increasingly determined to bring the Thousand Sons to battle and finish what the Space Wolves started at Prospero. After receiving word that the traitors are massing on the world of Gangava, Ironhelm launches a full attack, leading 11 great companies into battle. Having laid his plans over hundreds of years, Magnus the Red arrives on Fenris with the remaining fighting strength of his legion. Only a single great company remains to defend the Fang, and Bjorn the Fell-Handed is roused from his slumber to lead a guerrilla campaign against the traitor forces. The Thousand Sons breach the great gate of the Fang, but not before the wolf scout Harkon Blackwing escapes to bring word to the rest of the chapter. The Space Wolves return in force to drive their hated enemies from their home world. Harek Ironhelm faces Magnus in personal combat, but is struck down before mighty Bjorn banishes the Primarch in return. Millennium 36 to 40. Saga of Judgments. The Plague of Unbelief. Having gathered a vast army of deluded zealots to his cause, the apostate cardinal Bucaris of Gassalamor leads his unholy crusade towards terror. The bloody path he carves across the galaxy soon comes to Fenris, where Bucharest is confident that the seemingly inexhaustible forces at his disposal will soon secure his victory. After a grueling 3-year siege in which the renegade forces suffer massive losses, Wolflord Krill Grimblood concludes his campaign in the Eye of Terror and returns to Fenris, smashing into the rear of the traitor lines. Caught between the impenetrable defences of the Fang and Grimblood's fleet, Bucharest's armada is forced to withdraw, abandoning a large part of their fighting strength to their fate. The Jacobean Censure. Inquisitor Jacobean of the recently formed Ordo Hereticus decries the practices of the priesthood of Fenris and proclaims the Space Wolves as heretics for their lack of adherence to the Codex Astartes. A sizable contingent of inquisitorial henchmen and Astra Militarum regiments joins Jacobean as he launches his crusade against the sons of Ras. The Wolf Lord of each great company send their most trusted wolf scouts to apprehend the Inquisitor in the Sverdgel system, where Jacobean is revealed to be the Changeling, a shape-shifting servant of Tzeentch. Those officers who followed the demon are given over to the Ordo Hereticus, but the Space Wolves advocate for the pardon of those soldiers who served in his army. Millennium 41, Saga of the Waning. The First War for Armageddon. The World Eaters invade the hive world of Armageddon alongside a vast demonic host, led by none other than the demon Primarch Angron. The newly elected Great Wolf, Logan Grimnar, leads the Space Wolves to the planet's defense, arriving just in time to halt the onslaught of Khorne's minions. In a final cataclysmic battle, the World Eaters are thrown back from the hastily prepared Imperial defences and defeated. Angron and his bodyguard of 12 bloodthirsters of Khorne are banished back to the warp by the combined effort of an entire brotherhood of Grey Knight Terminators, though over 90 are slain in the act. The Wolf and the Knight. A knight of House Hawkshroud becomes oathsworn after Crom Dragongaze saves him from certain death. Honor's End. During the Eclipse Wars, the Space Wolves fight alongside the Angels Vindicant and the Flesh Tearers chapter upon the shrine world of Lucid Prime. Largely due to a ferocious attack by Flesh Terror assault marines, Imperial forces are able to drive off the Chaos Space Marine forces terrorizing Hive Ratspire. However, the Flesh Tearers continue their indiscriminate killing, even after the Chaos Renegades have been repelled. Despite Chapter Master Seth's insistence that his men are purging those that have been tainted by the presence of Chaos, the Space Wolves are outraged and attack the Flesh Tearers at once. The resultant battle sees brother fighting brother, and the deaths of many on both sides. This terrible event is known forevermore as Honor's End. From out of the warp it came. Engir Krakendoom's great company are close to hand when a vast anomaly breaches the yawning warp gate of Sloth. 12,000 miles of heaving flesh, the entity defies classification until a xenobiologist realizes that the anomaly was once a void whale, twisted by the unnatural tides of the warp. As the monstrosity prepares to engulf the astral stronghold of Perilia, the Space Wolves board it in drill-tipped torpedoes. Fighting amongst frond forests and gill chasms, Engir and his men battle through the nightmarish products of its hostile ecosystem before planting thermal charges deep within its vital organs. They escape with seconds to spare, before the behemoth finally comes apart in a great cloud of tainted blood. The Perillian gas belt is born from its remains. Slaying of the Ice Trolls. Harald Deathwolf, in his past life a champion of the Tidehounds tribe, hears tell of a migration of ice trolls that has reached the land of his birth and is devouring his people. In a rage, he makes an unsanctioned return to his ancestral roots and leads his savage tribekin to victory over the marauding monsters, claiming the enchanted pelt of the largest of their number as a trophy. Bad blood is spilled. The Space Wolves and the Dark Angels fight alongside each other for the first time in many years to quell an uprising in the Artemis system. In the wake of the conflict, Raynolf the Strong inadvertently kills the Dark Angels champion, Balthazar Zafan, in the traditional contest that reenacts the duel fought between Russ and L. Johnson. Blood is shed on both sides in the ensuing fracas. An alliance broken. When the Orc War of Grimtusk Bloodboiler looks set to consume the entire Asalak sector, it is not only the great company of Egil Ironwolf that stands in its path. An Eldari war host fights hard to contain the Greenskin invasion, to prevent the Space Wolves from becoming surrounded. Egil's tanks take a heavy toll on the Orc vanguard, and after weeks of bitter warfare, Warlord Grimtusk is killed and the war blunted. Later, Autarch Elenduil visits the throne room of Egil Ironwolf in great ceremony. His bodyguard of striking scorpions respectfully bearing the recovered bodies of fallen Space Wolves. Unfortunately, what was supposed to be a parley over a parting gift turns sour at a single stray mistranslation. Insults are exchanged and blades drawn. The sudden violence of the ensuing fight is but a shadow of the destruction that follows as the sector descends into total war between the three factions. The Battle of Montberg Spaceport. High Fleet Colossus descends upon the civilized world of Thresiax, and the forces garrisoned there prove unable to stop the Tyranid invaders. Imperial High Command calls for all remaining forces to withdraw, leaving the settlers of Thresiax to their fate, so the Tyranids can be exterminated from space. Bran Redmore, resupplying upon Thresiax at the time, objects to this diktat and sends his great hunters to the vital spaceport of Montberg so that the Thresiax can be evacuated. The Grey Hunters hastily train the folk of Montberg, and against all the odds, the Space Wolves and their new recruits hold the walls against the Tyranids, buying the civilians time to escape. When the 6 surviving Grey Hunters finally withdraw from the spaceport, Imperial High Command demands they be stripped of all honors for disobeying a direct command. Instead, Bran Redmore promotes all 6 into his personal Wolf Guard in recognition of their valorous deeds. The blinking of the Wolf's eye. A warp anomaly causes the first solar eclipse on Fenris. To the superstitious Fenrisians, such an ill omen portends a time of great woes ahead. Murderfang's rampage. On the hell world of Omnicide, Logan Grimnar's great company stumbles upon a feral Space Wolves dreadnought, carving its way through a force of Chaos Space Marines. After a fierce struggle, the murderous machine is captured and frozen in stasis before being taken back to the Fang for study. The Avenge of Beric Thunderfist. Ragnar Blackmane slays his liege's killer, Gorok's Bloodfist, in single combat. After hunting down the Chaos Champion's word-bearer's allies, Ragnar is elected the fallen Wolflord's successor. Riders of the Storm. Logan Grimnar, majestic upon his chariot, Storm Rider, leads his great company in the charge that finally breaks the Necron phalanxes of Imhotep, the Stormlord, on Valoth 4. An oath fulfilled. After more than 350 years, Ulrich the Slayer avenges the aspirants lost to the Drukhari homunculus coven, the Hex. Kagris Zacht, the homunculus ancient who masterminded the atrocities so long ago, is betrayed by an ambitious underling who leaves his ghoulish overseer to face Ulrich alone. Zacht's head soon adorns a spike in the trophy hall of the Fang. The Third War of Armageddon. With his presence needed elsewhere, Logan Grimnar sends 5 great companies to Armageddon to join the Imperial forces hastily gathering there to combat the second, even larger invasion of Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka's Orc War. The battle for Alaric Prime. The great wolf himself leads the sons of Rust to Sanctus Reach, diving headlong into battle on the beleaguered night world Alaric Prime against the red war of Gluck Face Ripper. The Kraken awakes. The 50-foot-long, leather-skinned kraken egg held in the trophy hall of the Fang splits open to disgorge a slithering swarm of tentacled beasts. Harald Deathwolf's Fenrisian wolves smell the creature's acrid stench first and lead the Wolf Lord himself to investigate. Together with Canis Wolfhorn and a band of battle brothers, Harald messily butchers the abominations. Return of the 13th Great Company. On the hive world of Neurides, Harald Deathwolf and his great company slaughter the mutants spawned by a raging warp storm, but are ambushed by a horde of demons. Mysterious hulking figures leap to the aid of the Space Wolves, shredding the creatures of chaos and covering the battlefield with their ichor. These newcomers wear armor bearing a mark not seen in 10,000 years, the icon of the wolf kind, emblem of the lost 13th Great Company. Harbingers of Doom. The newly found Wolfen are returned to Fenris, to their ancestral home where they are joined with their kin. Not all among the Space Wolves welcome their lost battle brothers, for the savage mutation in the calyx helix of the 13th Great Company evokes a dangerous bestial fury in other Space Wolves. However, expeditions are sent out to find other Wolfen packs that remain lost amongst the stars. It is at this time that tendrils of madness coil from the void, and demons beyond counting pour into the Fenris system. The trickster Tzeentch. As the Space Wolves return to Fenris to purge it of the invading demons, they are met by an Imperial fleet with the Dark Angel's fortress monastery, the Rock, at its head. The fleet's commanders intend to bring the Wolf Lords to judgment for accepting the deviant Wolfen into their ranks. Tensions rise, as the servant of Tzeentch, known as the Changeling, having infiltrated the Dark Angels, spurs the ancient rivals to war. The disguised demon announces that the Space Wolves have fired upon Grey Knight's vessels in the system, and that the savage Wolfen have turned on their Dark Angels' allies. With no Wolf Lords present to defend the Space Wolves, Azrael, Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels, orders his fleet to bombard the demon-infested planets of the Fenris system, despite the fact that Space Wolves still fight on the surfaces of these worlds. On the hive world of Midgardia, the rain of fire is so extreme that the surface is reduced to a scorched wasteland, and the billions of its citizens are obliterated. By a strange twist of fate, Logan Grimnar and Egil Ironwolf are trapped below the surface and avoid the destruction of the exterminators. Brother Captain Stern of the Grey Knights, along with Ragnar Blackmane, arrives on the bridge of the Rock just as the bombardments commence. Confusion and anger reign, but into the madness speaks Stern. He alone senses a traitor in their midst, Mendaxis, the Vox Seneschal, who is in fact the corporeal form of the Changeling. With its ruse exposed, the trickster demon flees into the heart of the Rock. Though it sows much more havoc, it is eventually cornered and sent back to the warp by the blade of Ragnar Blackmane. The Wrath of Magnus. In the wake of mayhem created by the Changeling, 9 silver towers of Tzeentch appear above Fenris. As the rune priests cast their stones, each reading is more foreboding than the last, and in the Imperial fleet, construals of the Emperor's Tarot point to a ravenous serpent of flame. The silver towers descend through Fenris's orbit to disgorge their legions. Each citadel's sorceress master using its power to pollute a sacred site of Fenris. As the warriors of the Thousand Suns begin their implacable advance across the Death World, the Sons of Rust charge to meet them. On glaciers, volcanoes, and mountains, the Space Wolves battle the traitor legions, and the snows are reddened by blood. On the third day, the fortresses of the Thousand Suns arrange themselves to form the ancient Prosperine symbol of vengeance, and from the nexus of power at its heart bursts forth the demon Primarch Magnus the Red. Aided by Ahriman, the most gifted of his legion, Magnus seeks to corrupt Fenris itself, and therefore its people, turning the fiery world spirit of the planet against those who had been his persecutors millennia ago. In the final concentrated attack against Magnus, the Space Wolves are joined once more by the Dark Angels, though their raven-winged jet fighters are disintegrated by lancing sorcerous blasts. The Death Wolves are next into the fray, supported by Grey Knights of the Wardmaker's Brotherhood. Step by step, they hack their way through ranks of summoned demons to reach the Crimson King. More Imperial warriors charge the Infernal Primarch as the most powerful rune priests, gathered under Jarl Stormcaller, call on the rocks and chasms of Fenris to trap Magnus in their jaws. With a bolt of chaos energy, Magnus transmutes the Grand Master of the Wardmakers, Valdar Oricon, into lifeless metal. Egil Ironwolf is next to fall, with Magnus shifting the Wolf Lord telekinetically, so he is vaporized by his own Lascannon blast. This gruesome end to Egil's saga buys Grimnar the opening he needs. Pouncing from his chariot, the Great Wolf calls out a challenge to Magnus before hewing the Demon Primarch's chest with the axe Morkai. As Magnus howls in pain, Grey Knight's purifiers chant rites of banishment, and in a blinding explosion, Magnus is expelled from Fenris. The fall of Cadia. The victorious Space Wolves rush to the Cadian Gate as Abaddon the Despoiler launches his 13th Black Crusade against the system. After a series of grueling orbital battles, the Imperial fleets are left all but crippled, and the invasion set much Imperial blood on the planet's surface. In a last effort to halt Abaddon's Black Fortress, the Will of Eternity, Wolflord Sven Bloodhowl leads his Fire Howlers along with other Adeptus Astartes and Astra Militarum forces in a boarding action. He has not been seen since. Whatever their fate, the flight of the Blackstone Fortress continues towards Cadia. Many other Space Wolves are slain on Cadia itself, as traitors and demons pour across the planet. Among them is Orvan Highfell, successor to Egil Ironwolf, who is torn to shreds by a rampaging bloodthirster. His valiant sacrifice, along with those of countless other Imperial warriors, are ultimately in vain, as the Will of Eternity is sent crashing into Cadia. The pylons scattered across the world that for 10 millennia had held back the warp are rendered useless, and the planet is transformed into a roiling demon world. The jaws of the warp. The rune priests of Fenris hear the bestial howl of the Immaterium as warp storms tear through the Imperium. For a moment, the guiding light of the Astronomicon is snuffed out, and the Emperor's realm is plunged into darkness. The worlds of humanity are buffeted by empiric energy, tearing apart the links between them, and many are lost forever. The opening of the Great Rift renders each planet a solitary island, alone in the savage sea of stars. Millennium 41. Saga of the Maledictum. The gift of the Primarch. Word reaches Fenris that Rabut Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, has been awakened from his millennia-long stasis, and has been made Lord Commander of the Imperium once more. The great companies are summoned to Fenris to receive the Primarch as his Indomitus crusade passes through the subsector. Upon Guilliman's arrival, he presents the Space Wolves with new ranks of warriors, the Primaris Space Marines, created from the gene stock of Leman Russ by the Archmagus Dominus of Mars. Despite the great companies being severely understrengthened in the wake of so many recent wars, there is still division amongst the Wolflords as to whether or not the warriors of Guilliman's Ultima founding should be accepted into the great companies. After all, the Primaris Battle Brothers are not born on Fenris. They have not braved its savage winters and violent summers, and they have not taken the tests of Morkai. Some of the Wolflords see the gift of Guilliman as a ploy to undo their proud tradition and bend the Space Wolves chapter finally to the precepts of the Codex Astartes. Though he hears their protests, Logan Grimnar sternly counsels his Wolflords to follow the will of the Lord Commander at this time. The return of Magnus. Magnus the Red launches a colossal assault on the Stygius sector, located on the far side of the Great Rift, in the region now known as the Imperium Nihilus. To reach the war zone, 7 great companies wend their way through the treacherous channels that cross the Cicatrix Maledictum. The Space Wolves, along with Dark Angels, Iron Hands and Astra Militarum forces, launch a counterattack against the invading Thousand Suns on the crystallized world of Tarkan. It is the first major campaign in which the Primaris Space Marines are deployed, and they fight with the same ferocity and passion as any son of Fenris. Yet despite the tenacity, the overwhelming numerical superiority of the Chaos forces soon turns the counter-offensive into a desperate last stand. It is only the sudden and unexpected arrival of an Eldari strike force from craftword Ulthway that allows the Imperial forces to make a fighting withdrawal, leaving much of the Stygius sector to its grim fate. The Curse of Rus. Having shown their strength and savagery in many battles, packs of Primaris Space Marines are deployed by Wolflords more readily. Though they do not know the customs of Fenris, they are innate hunters, and show a preternatural ability to coordinate their attacks with those of other Space Wolves. Ulrich the Slayer proposes that within the Primaris Marines, the key to curing the Wolfen's curse may be found, but he is soon proven wrong. Whilst purging a Drukhari raiding party on the mining world of Smelter's Heap, several packs of Inceptors fighting alongside the Wolfen succumb to the bestial affliction. Rather than using their assault bolters to outrange the witches they fight, the Inceptors charge heedlessly into their enemy and use their firearms as blunt makeshift bludgeons. Through sheer animal fury, the Inceptors are able to drive off their foe, and with the battle over, they regain control of their passion once more. But it is revealed that, through their genetic link to the Primarch, these sons of Rus are just as susceptible to the curse of the Wolfen as any other member of the Space Wolves. The Primaris Trials. To prove their mettle and dedication to both themselves and to their chapter, many Primaris Space Marines travel to Fenris to undertake the test of Morkai. Though they have no need to drink from the cup of Wolfen, they must still make the 1,000-mile-long journey across the Fenrisian barrens, bereft of any clothing or weaponry, without succumbing to their bestial instincts. While the majority pass the test, no small few do not return. Night of the Hellblasters. Repulsors laden with Hellblasters assault the Iron Warrior's fortress on the drifting orb known as the Midnight Moon. The dark planetoid glows bright in the void as the Space Wolves unleash the fury of their plasma weaponry. The Great Portent. On Fenris and in war zones across the Sea of Stars, rune priests receive riddling visions and cryptic visitations. Time and again, their casting bones point to the same future: the return of the 13th Great Company, the emergence of Magnus the Red, and the awakening of Reboot Gilliman are the last verses of the saga that will culminate in the Wolf Time, the prophesied return of Leman Russ. After undertaking a perilous spirit walk, Njal Stormcaller petitions Logan Grimnar and Ulrich the Slayer to wake Bjorn the Fell-Handed, so that the ancient warrior may grant the High Rune Priest an audience. The request is granted, though what they speak of is kept secret.